From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Getting a gauge on dairy.
We have to continue to get more efficient.
Several producers joined forces, opening their books in an effort to help the whole industry. The acreage battle.
Every acre matters this year.
We're just days away from USDA's big report. See what more market watchers are predicting. Do more shipping delays loom on the horizon? And the latest on what's happening right now in China and the steps happening here at home to ease the crunch. This morning on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The market's under pressure to start the week as COVID concerns in China have traders looking to shed risk. It comes after government officials in Shanghai announced rolling lockdowns in order to conduct coronavirus testing. Now, in the city of 26 million people, residents will be barred from leaving their homes. There's concern any suspension of commercial activity in Shanghai will have global ripple effects. Now, the city is one of China's primary centers for finance, manufacturing, and trade. Shanghai has been the world's busiest port when it comes to container volume since 2010. And Chinese state media officials say the port continues to operate, while other reports say that trucking services in and out of the city will be severely impacted and several warehouses are closed. All this coming as officials work to contain an outbreak of the highly transmissible Omicron variant. The restrictions are in place until next Tuesday, April 5th. News of the lockdowns come as U.S. West Coast ports make progress on a backlog of ships. At last report, the Marine Exchange of Southern California said there were 43 container ships backed up at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. Of those, 3 of the ships have been waiting 4 weeks. 16 have been backed up for less than a week, and efforts are continuing in Congress to try and address shipping issues. The Senate Commerce Committee passing last week the Ocean Shipping Reform Act. Writers of the legislation say it would help ag exporters by leveling the playing field for American exports by making it harder for ocean carriers to unreasonably refuse goods ready to export at ports.
According to the Agriculture Transportation Coalition, impacted farmers include hay and potato farmers from Washington, cotton growers from Mississippi, pork from South Dakota, soybeans from Minnesota, paper products from Tennessee, almonds from California, dairy from Wisconsin, poultry from Georgia, and citrus from Florida. We're proud in what we make and grow in the United States of America, and we expect it to get to its destinations in a timely fashion. It is unfair that these consumers are being gouged with these high prices, and our very important growers can't get their products to market in a timely fashion.
Now, the U.S. Dairy Export Council and National Milk Producers Federation are urging Congress to expeditiously advance the process to ease ag exports. The American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall saying his team is pleased with the committee's work in moving this legislation to the Senate floor. Another issue continuing to weigh on the markets, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Ukrainian government announcing it is removing corn and sunflower oil export license requirements. Now, it's hoped it will allow for easier exports of those products from the country. It's also hoped the sale of the commodities will provide money for spring planting. The Ukrainian Grain Association saying the country used to be able to export about 200,000 metric tons of grain per day through its ports, but it says using railways, the country can only export about 20,000 metric tons per day. On Thursday, USDA will release its prospective plantings report, and several ag companies are releasing their numbers ahead of it. The latest FBN, or Farmers Business Network, the numbers rely on surveys from its farming members. It's calling for just over 91 million acres of corn to be planted, a 2.3 million acre drop from last year. Now, it says strong commodity prices for key alternative crops coupled with record-breaking fertilizer prices are cutting into corn acres. Soybeans picking up some of those acres, coming in at 89.2. Analysts say nearly every state is expected to see corn acres dip this year, but one state really stands out.
I think the one that stands out most to us was North Dakota. North Dakota farmers are really kind of going away from corn into beans. Some of the other states where we actually thought corn acres might go up, like Iowa, Nebraska, they had been heavy in beans last year. They actually said they were going down just a slight bit. And again, I think, beans had such a good ROI when you factor in prices, when you factor in fertilizer values. So I do think, those states were really kind of an anomaly to us.
FBN says it's expecting 11.2 million acres of spring wheat. That's compared to many analysts' predictions of 11.8. And it says a bullish surprise from USDA in its report could help push prices above those recent highs.
AgDay weather, brought to you by AGI Nico. AGI Nico dryers have an average of 1 to 2 pounds heavier test weight per bushel than screen dryers. They can also save you 30% on average in fuel savings. That's money in your pocket. Visit aggrowth.com/Nico for more information.
Wildfires continue to rage in central Texas, causing evacuations. You're looking at one of the fires, the Crittenberg Complex fire near Fort Hood. It's estimated to have grown to more than 17,000 acres. It's a combination of 3 wildfires that are actively burning dry grass and brush. Not helping matters, high winds in that area. Crews are making some headway on the Eastland Complex fire that we've been telling you about. It is now 90% contained. And high winds continue to be an issue across plains right now. Meteorologist Andrew Wemmeyer joins us. Andrew, it's not the news firefighters want to hear.
That's right. High fire danger is going to continue today across the far southern plains. So that's going to be the area to focus there. And again, notice that elevated chance there, that higher risk for high fire danger. And we're actually going to see some of that shifting its way all the way across the eastern seaboard as well. Parts of the Carolina is going to have to watch out for some fire danger for today, as we're going to have some relatively low humidity levels as well as breezy conditions. Combine that with dry vegetation, and that is going to again lead to the perfect recipe for fires to potentially grow out of control. Do watch your burning here as we go throughout the next several weeks, as we are finally now into the spring weeks. Severe weather risk is going to come back into play again across the deep south. In fact, we're watching a prolonged period here Tuesday, Wednesday, right into Thursday. But we're going to have to keep watching the potential here for some strong storms, few tornadoes, damaging wind, hail, as well as some flooding concerns. And let's check out your photo of the day. This picture is bound to bring a smile to your face. Check out what Nebraska farmer Matt Jenkins shared with us. Matt saying on Twitter, his son, Jackson, said he had had enough carpet farming and he was finally ready to do some actual farming. Just look at the joy on those faces. A great way to start your day. I'll have more on your Ag Day forecast just ahead.
The nation's highest court says it will take up the legal challenges to California's Proposition 12. Proposition 12 was approved by California voters back in 2018. It took effect this past January. Now, it makes it illegal to sell pork in California unless the pig it comes from was born to a sow housed with at least 24 square feet of space and in conditions that allow the sow to turn around freely without touching her enclosure. Now, the state Superior Court recently delaying the effective date for 180 days after final regulations are issued, and the National Pork Producers Council and American Farm Bureau Federation petitioned the Supreme Court to look into it. The case is expected to be argued after the court begins its new term in October. How could natural gas supplies from Russia impact U.S. dairy markets? We'll discuss that next in analysis. And later, exchanging information with other dairy farmers is proving incredibly useful. We'll look at a new program in Tennessee where farmers help farmers find success in the country. Mike North with EverAg, our guest today. Mike, as we look at kind of the global dairy picture, talk a little bit about the impact that natural gas supplies and issues in Europe could have ultimately on the U.S. market.
Sure. So obviously, as we watch this ongoing conflict in the Ukraine and the Russian invasion there, the sanctions have caused some back and forth between the countries as to what products are going to flow from one to the other. And certainly Russia has pushed back and threatened to cut off the energy flow into Europe by way of not just crude oil, but natural gas as you raise up. And when we look at the dairy industry, processors use a fair amount of natural gas to process milk. You need natural gas to heat your vats when you're making cheese. You need natural gas even more if you're making milk powders, because it's an evaporative process and you're heating that milk to extract the water and turn that into that powder form. And when we talk about a shortage of natural gas, it immediately puts pressure on that industry as a whole. But when the countries themselves are having to make choices as to where the gas is allocated and how much they have, those areas are not absolutely necessary to maintaining their infrastructure. So it may be one of those areas that get pulled back. And if that in fact does happen, and milk dryers are essentially turned off, there's going to be a lot of milk looking for a home, because unlike grains, you can't put milk in a bin and wait until sometime later to process. So that milk is going to be chasing after different products. And with Europe being one of the major exporters of skim milk powder in the world, that would potentially raise the price of skim milk powder just due to the lack of availability. That would have a profound impact on our Class 4 market here for milk by raising the price of milk powders that we're selling into the world market as we become that low-cost provider, or at least for the moment. Reality is that market could see a lot of strength as we would move forward on such an issue.
So many different layers to this entire issue. Sure appreciate it, Mike. Thank you for taking a little bit of time today. We'll be back with more AgDay and a check of weather coming up in just a minute.
To contact Mike, visit www.ever.ag or give him a call at 608-518-3106. The 2022 Bracket Busters Challenge, presented by Case IH, is underway. Who's still in the game? To find out, head to AgWeb now through April 4th to check the leaderboard. AgDay weather is brought to you by Zoetis. Even though calves don't wait for perfect weather to arrive, you can count on Zoetis to be there. Share a picture of your newest calf and you could win a calving season survival kit. Enter now at calvingseason.com.
Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire joining us here. And Andrew, obviously it's that time of year when we really have to start watching out for severe weather, and there's a risk today.
Yeah, there's a risk today across the eastern plains, and we're going to continue to see that risk continuing to shift its way eastward as we go throughout the mid portion of this week. And again, that severe weather risk is going to shift its way eastward, in fact intensify as it goes across the deep south for tomorrow, for Wednesday. We're to watch the potential there for a few long track tornadoes as well as some straight line damaging wind gusts. And we're going to see this precipitation trend really begin to strengthen as well, where you see that severe weather. And really it's all thanks to an area of low pressure that's ongoing right now across the California coastline, which is bringing some good amount of moisture for this drought-stricken area. By no means is that the drought buster, but it certainly is welcomed. And we're going to see that the rainfall again continue to intensify. Where you see some of those yellows and oranges, that's where we could be looking at some heavier pockets of some showers and thunderstorms that could produce over an inch of rainfall. And there's a wintry side to the system as well, as that low pressure system continues to work its way across the Rockies here. We're going to see some snowfall across the upper portions of the plains and upper portions of the Midwestern states with accumulating snowfall once again, as well as with additional snow out across the Intermountain West. And as that low pressure again comes across the Rockies, we're going to be watching that front to come on through. Ahead of the front, it's going to be a mild atmosphere and a moist atmosphere. And on the back side of this, it's going to turn dry once again, as well as a cool down with that area of high pressure coming in across the central half of the country. Notice that cold front there, some of those oranges and reds showing up. That's the potential there for some of those strong thunderstorms, and that line is going to continue to work their way eastward. Temperature trend for this tomorrow morning. We're going to see those temperatures again building up just above freezing as that warm front lifts its way across the Great Lakes and Midwestern states here. 70s and 60s ahead of that front. Notice that cool down on the backward side though. That's some 30s and 40s that are going to head our direction as we head on into tomorrow afternoon. And that's going to lead to a cool down throughout much of the country as we go ahead and close the books on March and begin the month of April. Let's go ahead and check out a little bit closer to home. Hatesburg, Mississippi, mostly cloudy, very warm, temperature right around 83 degrees. And as we go over into Iowa, windy with pockets of heavier rain developing, high getting up into those middle 60s. And as we go over to Wyoming, windy with rain and snow showers.
Our neighbors to the north continue to buy more U.S. dairy. We'll have details next. And later, a new program in Tennessee is allowing farmers to understand each other's costs and businesses, how it's helping make dairy farmers better in the country. The Russian invasion of Ukraine could also have an impact on the dairy supply chain. In addition, inflation in dairy markets could begin to weaken consumption, especially in Russia and low-income nations. The analysis coming from Betty Burning with the Daily Dairy Report. Now, according to Rabobank, Russia and Ukraine are responsible for 18% of global corn exports, which is a key feed ingredient in dairy rations around the world. And that's where the domino effect begins. As input prices rise, so do milk and dairy prices. Higher dairy prices could then threaten global consumption. Now, some dairy companies, such as Lately, have stopped operations in Russia. Danone has closed one of its 2 plants in Ukraine, which could also have an impact. Canada is an important market for U.S. dairy products. How important? Exports to our neighbors to the north have grown by nearly 50% in just over a decade. That shows in this graphic from USDA's Economic Research Service. From 2010 to last year, total dairy exports from the U.S. to Canada rose 48%, from just over 466 million to more than 691 million last year. The country's proximity to the U.S. aiding in the export of items such as fluid milk, cheese, and infant formula. Now, by value, infant formula, which you see on the graphic in pink, has been the top U.S. dairy product exported to Canada, representing about 22% of the total. Margins, expenses, and costs, keeping the books on a dairy is always a challenge. Up next, we'll see how a new program in Tennessee is allowing dairy farmers to share information and improve on-farm efficiency. Details in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator, it's not just any closing wheel. Reach your yield potential. Pre-order by March 31st with coupon code AgDay for $2 shipping per wheel.
Dairy farmers across Tennessee are opening their books and sharing information with each other in an effort to help the entire industry. Charles Denny reports it's part of a University of Tennessee extension program called Dairy Gauge.
At Sweetwater Valley and Harrison Farms, they milk more than 2,000 cows a day. Here, a robotic milker in action, pumping from the mama to the jug. The operation produces milk and a number of cheese products sold at the on-site store.
We have to continue to get more efficient.
Managing one of Tennessee's busiest dairies falls to Steve Harrison. Here meeting with UT Extension and UTIA dairy and economics specialists to go over his expenses. Harrison is part of Dairy Gauge, where farmers open their books to one another so the dairy industry as a whole can thrive.
Each farm, individual farm, has a advantage or disadvantage. Some things, doesn't matter how well I'm doing, somebody else is doing something better. And so we can learn from each other, share that information.
Just down the road, Samantha Cron runs Davis Brothers Dairy, a family business where they milk 900 cows a day.
Yes, absolutely. We were one of the first farms to get on board with this, and it's really helped us to take a hard look at our cost of production. We can look into what factors are causing it to rise or go down.
Dairy Gauge is grant funded by the USDA. It includes partnerships with UT's Institute of Agriculture and dairy programs and universities in other states. Here researchers have been able to gather information that's never been collected before in Tennessee or the southeastern U.S. UT Extension Area Farm Management Specialist David Bilderback, who grew up on a dairy farm himself, presents these findings to producers. Among the topics, fertilizer and fuel cost, and milk production calculated on a 100-weight basis, and what works and doesn't work for farmers.
So now we have Tennessee, North Carolina, and Kentucky dairy farms that are included in the data. And this will give us ability to look and say if a policy change was to come, how will it affect our farms in this area?
Dairy Gauge really ties in helping our farmers understand where they're at currently, where they can go, and we're building on that again in our most recent round of funding by doing a value-added dairy business gauge, so we can take it beyond the farm and do it for some place like this.
Sweetwater Valley's value-added work should be able to keep on, and the same is true for the dairy industry. When farmers willingly share critical information to help other producers, it's good for everyone's business. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. By the way, he says about 30 farms are involved in the program right now. And that's going to do us for today's episode of Ag Day. I'm Clinton Griffiths from all of us here. Have a great day out on the farm country.